Hey, what's up, guys? We are live from the closet where most of Cyber Savage gets made. Here is the, I think we're starting at page 7 and 8 right here, respectively. Before all of our how to play videos get put up, they're still being edited. Uh, we got a whole little series there. Quest is busy at Northwest Hardcore Fest, so I want to give a little sample of the inside of the book and kind of go over some of this stuff with you guys anyway. So here's ranged combat actions. You'll see all the actions and how to do that stuff later. It's very simple, but I want to get into what makes the game different, which is the resolution. So here's the ranged combat sequence, all outlined here in the red box, and then aligning with the numbers of each step is a further detail, so you can follow that pretty easily, and that's just these 2 pages. So you select a visible target. Visibility, you see Cyber Savage down here. He's got his little silhouette marked from the edge of his base to the top of his head. That way, you can have your dynamic poses without having to scrunch anybody in. We know everybody stands like this or like this or like this. That's how models stand. No silhouette markers or any of that nonsense. It's pretty easy to kind of see on your little guy where his head's at, where his edges are. So you select your visible target, select your weapon, and the weapons they're based on classes. We'll create some characters in another video another time. Check your range. So here, guns are infinite. You're on a 2x2 table. Bullets go forever, but just to make it not crazy, we do have optimal range, which is 1 inch to 10, and then 11 to 15 is far. You get a little minus. Weaken, because we don't do pluses or minuses really. Weaken, your dice just becomes a size lower, so D8s go to D6s, and then extreme, 16 up, double weaken. So your D8, D6, D4. I guess while we're just rambling and going on different stuff, weakening, and then favorable, unfavorable. Those are the only 2 real ways to affect dice. You don't have any pluses or minuses, or a little roll a 4 up kind of thing. Everything's resolved in a comparison. Favorable and unfavorable, respectively, are roll an additional dice to your dice pool, and then either subtract the highest of those dice, whichever rolled the highest, or the lowest, based if you're or not favorable. All right, yep. So you generate your dice pool because you've checked your ranged. Your target's gonna react or not. If they react, maybe they have a gun and they haven't spent their reaction, they shoot out. You're having a little gunfight. Or defense, they just roll their defense dice. So roll a number of ranged dice equal to the attacks of the weapon being used, and then the target will generate their dice pool, whether they're defending or shooting out. Defending, they roll a number of defense dice, which is whatever their skill is. That's the size of dice they're going to roll. And then the guy shooting, or if you're shooting out, whatever their skill is for range, this would be the dice size they roll. Determine priority. Priority is important. That's who gets to initiate the first comparison in the combat resolution. That's either who initiated the attack, or if the target is undercover, or maybe they have some other cool abilities, or it's a hinder charge, then they'll have priority, which really affects the little mini game of comparison here. So you compare dice 1 at a time, starting with the character with priority. Damage is assigned simultaneously once all the dice are compared. Once the damage is through, you test or apply for any effects from weapon traits. Then if anybody's at 0 health, they're dead. Unless, of course, they have invincible, or any cool little abilities that can mess with that too. So comparison and generating a dice pool. That is the real different piece that Cyber Savage brings as far as rules writing. I think our character creation is pretty cool and very simple, and there's no little points stuff, but the resolution's truly the highlight of the game, I think. So for instance, and you'll see this all more in detail later, but I'm shooting with a medium weapon that's 3 shots. I'm obviously level 5, so I'm shooting 3 D12s. But someone's defending, so they are going to roll an equal amount of dice to the amount that I'm rolling. Or if they're shooting out and maybe they have a weapon that has it's a light weapon with more attacks than me, then I'll need to roll a defense dice, so we're rolling the same amount. So whatever my defense skill is, again a level 12, or a D12, I'll roll a defense dice to have an equal number. We'll both roll to generate our dice pool. Boom. generates, our dice pools are generated. Whoever has priority is going to make the first comparison. So they'll be like, oh, I'm going to use my 5 to hit your 4. Well, 5 is bigger than 4. 5 does damage. Whatever the damage of the weapon is, that's how much it does to me. I make a comparison next. So, I've got a 6, boom, compared to your 6, glancing hit. Only a single damage is done in glancing hits. But because I initiated the comparison, you take a damage. If you initiate it to me, I take a damage. Boom, boom, boom. Little comparison, little mini game. Oh, you can do it wrong. That's the funniest part about the dice pool comparison is you can think going highest to highest just seems correct, risk style, but sometimes it's not. With such big disparities between the size of dice and everything, you can get pretty creative in tricking your opponent by maybe using your low dice to chump their biggest one, and now the curve is swayed and everything. Also, it's just nice to have a little give and take. You make an attack, but both players are involved in what's happening, and you can even get a little bit of damage in or lessen the blow that you would take. And then abilities, they're all basically passives that happen based on certain criteria being met. A lot of them being if damage was dealt, inflict such thing, or maybe if damage was dealt, target takes a test and then suffers negative effect if it's a more powerful negative effect. But yeah, you can see you got this guy with a gun. Obviously, his arm is a gun, as it should be. And he's shooting this melee dude, and he's spilling, some alien goo. Let's go down here to 9 and 10. Now, this is the melee combat action section. So once again, outline all the steps, and then further detail for each step. Here's Cyber Savage with the silhouette again, showing the 1-inch range here that melee can have. So you don't gotta slam your models together, you get a little bit of leeway. Also, you saw that the range of the weapons was 1 inch plus, and so there is a minimum range. There's no locked in combat or anything, but you can still bully people, and so that gives a little bit of leeway for these melee guys. Obviously, the melee guys getting the upper hand now and totally cleaving this dude's head off. Oh yeah, that's gnarly. So it just goes through the same steps. There's a little bit of difference with melee, as charge is part of something that you can do. That's a complex action, detailed here in complex actions. But you get a +3 to your movement, but it has to be the shortest possible path, and that's where you can have to jump over stuff and become hindered and give up priority. But it just makes it so that on a 2x2 board where action starts right away and range is nigh infinite, that melee really does still have a place. And that's important because, like laser sorcery, I want to be able to have axes and swords and machine guns and laser bazookas and everything all feel completely viable. And throughout playtesting, this was a lot of how to make that work without feeling too forced, and also not feel not be too many rules or words to make it happen. And so charge +3. Most melee classes have an additional speed, so you'll have the same range of performing a charge as optimal shooting range, basically. Which, I mean, you want to get into semantics about it. It's laser sorcery, baby. It's sick. Okay. Here's some cyborgs, cyborg orcs here on this some kind of weird, surrealist, mountain growth hanging out. He's got his phone, so he can make his phone calls and stuff. This guy's got a gun arm, very important. Always got to have a gun arm. And a wizard, because you got to have the sorcery part of it all. Hitting down here to reactions. Now, reactions are a very big part of the game. I mentioned before, like dueling. That's the melee, sword fighting each other and shooting out. As you're making your comparison, you're both giving and taking shots, which is cool. And there's a lot of abilities that can affect, your effectiveness in a duel, or being able to duel or shoot out multiple times, or things like that. Or people that have already spent their reaction. There's Merciless, I believe. You can, target people after baiting the reaction out of them. I got an awesome illustration from Josh Green here. It's a sweet wizard casting something nasty, definitely nasty. The original cover to Cyber Savage, my brother made a much cooler one, which you can see pasted everywhere. But this was the working document one, so I had to sneak in one of my own drawings in here, of course. And yeah, you gotta have a dinosaur, you gotta have a rocket launcher, you gotta have a robot. All the important things are hit on here. Preparing for battle. So this is just going over creating a team. Now, like I mentioned before, all the classes. There's archetypes that are representative of. Basically, we tried to just make any model you grab. Well, is he a wizard, or does he have only a melee weapon, or only a gun, or a melee weapon and a gun? Like, how do we find those archetypes and make it as simple as possible, so that no models turned away? And so it goes through here on building a character, which is, you get your model, gotta pick your cool guy you just made, or maybe one of your favorite dudes, that doesn't get a lot of love. An old classic here. And I'll make a video using the Force Builder web app to just show how easy it is to make a guy. You sign a class, so whatever class he is, that's his points. We play 12 points, so 12 level 1s or 2 level 5s and a level 2, 3 models. You can do whatever you want. And that's it for points. There's no little finicky stuff, because all the characteristics and weapon traits are all just assigned in amount of numbers based on the class. So pretty simple stuff. And a lot more balanced than you'd think. I mean, we've been playtesting this with a pretty solid group of guys trying to break the game for almost 2 years now. Not to say that we didn't find tons of exploits, but we've done our best to patch those. Sadly, kind of a competitive gamer by nature, and so it was good to make something that didn't just fall apart instantly. You select you sign a weapon, and then get your weapon traits and generate a flaw if you want. Just a little bit of fun in there. There's some flaws. We can see Cyber Savage here. He's a level 3. He's a Raider, which is the class that has both a ranged weapon and a melee weapon. So for Risen P7 here, I chose a standard light range with quick draw, RoboCop style, because it's not really a holster here. I just imagine it, fits really tight there. He's got Savage, because it's in the name, and he's got a sweet barbarian girdle. The Trinoculars, enhanced vision is the trait I gave him there, and then standard weapon. It's a medium melee with penetrating, because it's green, so it cuts through stuff. So, and you can see the classes. Level 1, just got the grunt, and then is it a melee grunt or a ranged grunt? And then level 2, you got the trooper. That's the gun one. Warrior's the melee one. Mercenary is the both gun and a melee weapon. And then the mage, you start getting into spells. Level 3, level 4, and then level 5 got really cool names, because they're badass. And then your weapons, really easy. Light, medium, heavy. 4 attacks, 2 damage. 3 and 3, 2 and 4. Basically, there's certain ways that different abilities will kind of be favored to work in, like, example, explosive is better because with a heavy weapon, which kind of feels natural to have, an RPG be a heavy weapon. You only get 2 shots, but explosive does damage to the different guys around, and only a single dice is rolled there, so you get the higher impact of the 4 damage. Where something like a light weapon, you can imagine that as like a little dagger, or maybe just anything really fast, like a minigun, stuff like that can be light, and you're getting a lot more dice out there. You have a lot more ability to do favorable comparisons for yourself. Getting more selection and amount of dice, and so you have more chances to get some of those abilities off and stuff. And then the tech level, that is assigned based on the classes there. You can see that's the amount of weapon traits they get, and so everyone will get the same access to the same weapons, but the amount of traits they get to really reflect the uniqueness or abilities of those weapons, that's based on the tech level of the weapon. So that's it's a standard medium weapon, so that means it's a melee weapon and it only has 3 attacks and does 3 damage, and then it's a standard, so it gets only 1 weapon trait. I chose penetrating. Once again, I'm gonna do a video where I use the Force Builder, and we'll go through building and show how easy that is. Characteristics, there's a lot of them. Very cool, basically all cool adjectives, just trying to say what your dude is, make him cool, and a lot of nifty combos and things you can really find some synergy in. And then weapon traits, same thing, even more. I mean, there's so many combinations here and so many cool things. It's been a lot of fun trying to make a lot of our favorite pop culture characters, see how it works. Like maybe this is a familiar face, or maybe this guy is a familiar face. I mean, Yeah, there's some cool stuff we've got to do with this system outside of just the laser sorcery to show its reflectiveness. Flaws, you have to roll for that. You don't get to choose, and there's some. Basically, you get an extra characteristic, but you get a little flaw as the negatives part. So maybe your guy's oblivious and he can't benefit from cover because he's just hanging out. That actually comes from playing airsoft with my friend Andy, and I told him to get under cover, and he just looked around what's going on and got smoked 2 seconds into the match and lost the whole game for us because he was the VIP. So oblivious, shout out little Andy Edge, you're an idiot, love you. Maybe your guy's old, maybe he's got a weak stomach. There's some all kinds of fun flavor there. And then spells. This is the last thing I want to touch on. This video is probably kind of getting a little bit long, but spells in everyone's favorite familiar grimdark game are always something that is like complete feast or famine. Tons of crazy stuff happens, and it's really game changing, and that's cool, right? That's awesome. I mean, that's really a lot of the flavor of that, and also like the old world, and that's cool and fine. That's not how it is in Cyber Savage, though. There's a curve that it operates on because it uses the same dice comparison resolution, and so the effectiveness of a spell is based on the number of successes that it gets. And so you have a fizzle, 0 successes, something has gone wrong, so something bad will happen. So there's still a little bit of that element there. A single success, all spells are 3 dice, by the way. Oh man, I'm doing this in a terrible order. All spells are 3 dice, and so if you get 1 success, you get the weak level of the casting. 2 successes, you get the adequate level, and then exemplary is 3 successes. So that's the top end of what the spell can do. So you have a little bit of curve. Also, spells are cast with willpower, and they target willpower. Willpower is a statistic that doesn't have as many abilities to affect it in the same way as ranged melee and defense. And so where most characters are operating with their armor and their cybernetics and their just barbaric muscle and cool training and all these different abilities and effects and stuff that can manipulate those and target other ways, willpower is not affected as much, and so it's kind of a weak spot on a lot of classes just because you don't have as much agency with it. And so that gives spells a type of effectiveness and like curves that they can often hit, in the way their spells go out. So here's an awesome wizard, Ezekiel, incredible shot. RJ McKinnon did all the shots in this book. Absolutely astounding. It was so cool to see the miniatures brought to life like this. And another Josh Green piece. Gotta love a wizard with 3 arms. Arm for the book, arm for the staff, arm for the magic, but 1 eye only. Once again, a flaw maybe, perhaps. Here's a list of the spells. So let's just look at fling. So fling is the spellosity, technical term, is the target. So that means that you're going to roll the willpower of the caster versus the willpower of the person being targeted. It's got a short range, and on a fizzle, the caster actually gets flung, and he moves, scatter D8, which, where the D8 points. You'll see that in the video. We're not saying everything right now. A single success a week, the target gets knocked back 4 inches, or 6, or on the exemplary 8 inches, so you can fling them. Boing! Pretty cool, pretty good. You're playing with verticality. You're throwing stuff off cliffs. People are on objectives. Bye bye. Maybe they're in a combat you don't want. Now, if you look at something like, let's see. Yeah, let's just do bless. So the spellosity here is just assigned as a D8. Now that means that you're not, because a bless is something you would target to your, yourself or one of your allies. And so the spellosity in this case is a D8 because it won't be based off of the willpower of the target. It'll just be the difficulty of the spell being cast. And so your opponent will roll the D8s for you and make the comparison. It's got its range, and then if you fizzle, it weakens all the stats of the target. But on the successes, it'll favorable, strengthen, or favorable and strengthen. So it's a way to buff your guys up. One thing I should say too, that's illustrated in all the effects and the weapon traits and stuff, everything is until the end of the model's next activation. And so there's no like weird reset the turn and you lose all your buffs or anything. Like when a character is affected by something, negative or positive, it's they are going to have to take a turn with that effect. And everything is only a single turn. There's no cooldowns to keep track of or anything, so it's pretty simple. Yeah, that's spells. All right, so awesome Mick Sheeta piece. That guy's the best. Very, very cool. Very Geiger-esque. I don't know how to describe that, but yeah, love his work. This is awesome. We're getting into terrain. There's tons of other stuff. I don't want to give too much away, the whole hobby section. But I really appreciate if you watched all the way to the end. The support for the Cyber Savage campaign has been incredible. Honestly, this is just like a passion project that my brother and I have been, working at for so long, and we're so excited to share with you because we've had just so much fun making our favorite characters come to life and play them with our friends. And so I hope that, you guys can too. Thank you for watching. Thank you for the support. Cannot wait to share this with you.